or come farther apart, they will essentially shorten any longer. Okay? And then they will fire inputs. If you pulled joints apart or push them together, you will fire off proprioceptive input from those proprioceptors. Okay? This sensory system is very important for understanding where your body is in space and how to grade motion, so that you're not using an all or none kind of very skeleton, clunky kind of motion. You're kind of learning how to finite your body awareness, finite your body in space, know where your feet are underneath yourself, know where your ankles are. And that's very important for balance, for midline use, for so many things. Okay? So that's one system that's important. When you have low muscle tone, the resting state of your muscles is what it is, and when you go to move it, they should respond. Lower muscle tone means that your muscles don't taut up, they don't tighten up as much as somebody else's would in response to motion. What ends up happening is we have children that are a little more loosey-goosey in their joints, a little more floppy-ish in their joints. They seem a little overly flexible, and that's a total misnomer of terms. But they bend in ways that maybe we shouldn't bend, and they don't seem to mind it. Those children, think of what's happening to the proprioceptors. If your body mechanically and anatomically is kind of hanging out of its original placement, it's going to put this natural stretch on the proprioceptors, which is almost going to leave them less available for firing. Right. Because it's going to take so much more articulation of that joint space and those two bones to be able to squash them, because they're already their resting state, instead of being their traditional resting state, is already kind of pulled apart and stays there. After it stays there for a period of time, you don't get the information anymore. It's the altering structure of that mechanism. So sometimes kids with lower muscle tone, basically, they need much more proprioception. The kind that they need is typically the kind where we're trying to squish their joints together. Joint compressions, jumping, bouncing, climbing, weight bearing, crawling, all those kinds of things.
But are those muscles not, if his brain is not the way it should be?
Yep. You're going to ask me like the holy grail question of low muscle.
Well, how much can you fix if it's your brain that's the problem?
So there's been kind of a long-standing argument where I could ask one neurologist, they would say one thing, I could ask another neurologist, they would say another thing. Some neurologists would be like, low muscle tone is low muscle tone, it is what it is, it's part of your genetics, you can't change it no matter what you do. Other neurologists would say, not necessarily opposite of that, but they would basically say, no, it's good to work on muscle tone, so to speak, to strengthen the joints, bring stability, postural security, all those things, because then basically that they have more to work with. The way that I look at it is that you can't really change it. It is genetically kind of who you are, but if you have low muscle, I have low muscle tone. If I make myself as strong as possible, then within a moment's notice, I've got as much strength as I can possibly pull in to kind of compensate for that lack of stability. And so that's kind of the same thing, and both neurologists would say the same thing. Treatment would be the same. Give them as much strength as you can and awareness of their muscles and their joint spaces and their body awareness, so that when they need it and it's got to kick into action, at least they have it available to them.
Well, like Lori had those pictures of kids with Down syndrome that she works with, and we were so struck by, when I see children with Down syndrome at home, how their muscle tone was so much better than I'm used to seeing.
Yeah.
So clearly, I mean, I get what you're saying in that regard. Like, you can still do the best you can.
Yeah.
But to me, I wonder, is this stuff, when these joints are firing, what if it's not getting there?
Well, you said that looking at your brain, though. So proprioceptors, sensory information, motor information, all runs along those myelinated pathways that you were describing.
Right.
And you said that at least initial findings were
The
suggesting
myelination
myelination is
was
good. And that's the conduction of the information, how fast it translates down to innervate, depending on whether it's a motor nerve, obviously, or a sensory nerve. But I think that we can assume that those are intact as far as conduction.
And one guy said it was delayed, but then this other group said, the Johns Hopkins.
The
response, I thought it was
delayed, like that they were
that
responding
the myelination was delayed.
Okay.
For someone his age.
All right, I would be interested to see if they were looking at that structurally, or if that was something they got clinically.
Structural.
Okay, like looking
from
at the structures,
MRI.
the thickness of it.
Yes, but then Johns Hopkins said it was in the normal range, and then another person had said the ventricles were in normal range, but then Johns Hopkins said they weren't. So I think it's so very specific when you're looking at whatever.
I would assume, to be honest with you, the way that he's utilizing his body does not suggest to me that the information is not coming in. My question is, and this is more from a sensory processing versus a structural element, is it being decoded decoded or interpreted properly.
Right, which might be the matter part.
Because basically, like, he can feel his feet, like from a sensory perspective, he's feeling things.
But
my
Lori
question
said
is feeling them
yesterday,
appropriately.
she said, I don't know if he feels things when I'm touching him. She said because he had like this big glob of applesauce on his chin, and she was like, he's not even aware it's there.
If anything, I'm seeing you can have a mixed profile, it's not.
Right.
I wish they came in nice little boxes and wrapped up all neatly and what have you, but it's not the case. But typically speaking, like what I'm seeing today for touch related, with how that system is functioning, is if anything over responsive, not under responsive.
So why would he not feel that food? Or she said, I don't know if he knows the food is over here in his mouth.
Well, because you remember, body awareness is not only touch but also proprioception. So it's possible that both of them are going on a little from here and a little from there. But what I'm seeing today is not an under-registration of touch. Under-registration of touch, kids, typically will be looking for input. They're thirsty for input. They rub their faces on things. They rub their faces on the floor. They put everything in their mouth.
And he did that earlier, but he doesn't now.
Do all that stuff. They're seeking it. They might seek more intensive, but like chewing weird things they're not supposed to. They might, they might lick things. They might mouth toys excessively past an age that we would expect them to do that, of course. They may want to rub things for comfort. They might want to rub things on themselves for comfort. They may have certain preferences to clothing, being very soft and cottony and organic and things like that. Not seeing that. I'm seeing that he loves to snuggle. I'm seeing that but like a kid who's seeking like that, like for example, a kid who's typically seeking tactile input that's comforting, they will, they'll use that blanket, you know what I mean? They'll either sit there and pill the fabric within their fingers or rub a certain part of like the soft tag or something on their,
he does pick that side.
But he's kind of like, he's just using it as a snuggle object, much like somebody would use a stuffed animal, not at the same qualities. Tactile kids also with their moms, they might like to rub their bums, their skin or her cheek or
a piece of her hair,
or a piece of her clothing. And I'm just not seeing him
he doesn't do that.
And so that's what a seeker usually looks like, who's under registering. I find him to be, for the most part, over-registering.
Which is why you go to a soccer game at the playground and he's like, I gotta get in the swing.
So the tactile is one, but you can be, and so I'm going to step back for a second so you can understand this better, because I'm also forgetting kind of where you're coming from. I want to bring your knowledge up to speed here. Think of every one of the 7 sensory systems as a two-sided coin, okay? Head and a tail side, okay? Head side, let's say, is going to be this side we call modulation. That's taking the input in through those receptors in whatever system you're talking about. Take in that information, digest it, decode it, piece it apart, see what it means to you, and you're okay with that. That's good modulation. If you take in touch information and all of a sudden it's irritating, it's painful, it's not coming in right, it's like Charlie Brown's teacher talking to you, it doesn't make sense. Then your body can be like, whoa, and it can go into a hyper-aroused state or a hypo-aroused state. If you don't feel anything, you're going to be like, I don't even know that happened. And you would need to do that to me 20 times. You need to rub it on me like this, and then you're like, oh, are you touching me?
Which might be how he was when he was younger.
And their profiles can change. As they change, especially as they're exposed to more stimuli, which they are when they are getting older, of course. So that's the modulation side. The discrimination side of the coin is taking that information that hopefully you've partially decoded properly and using it for skill. So you take tactile modulation, touch information that comes in, light touch, deep touch, all kinds of touch. You make sense of the world. It gives you more data, essentially. You then go to use your hands to do something like crayons, and now you've learned from all those tactile qualities and size and shape and everything you've touched and come into contact with that helps you know how to hold the pencil with the right grasp, how it helps you move it into a certain part of your hand, just like you're moving food into a certain part of your mouth. So that's tactile discrimination. So there's 2 sides of the coin. Either side of the coin could be going wrong, or one could be good and one could not be good. But right now, what I'm seeing is, funny enough, when kids are defensive to touch, and touch tends to be more overwhelming or over-alerting, they actually can, oddly enough, have very good fine motor skills, almost exquisitely good fine motor skills, because they get so used to being in this mechanism of defense, part of which is this kind of like heightened awareness to stay away and protect your body. So they can be the most defensive kid in the world, has the most refined pincer grasp of it.
Right. And he didn't though. I mean, like he did not. His fine motor was not good.
I don't think his tactile is good.
Right.
I think both of them need
Are
help.
bad.
Both,
Right.
No, they're not both bad. Both of them need help. I do really feel he has modulation issues in the touch area,
Right.
tactile area,
Right.
and I also feel he has discrimination issues. His discrimination issues aren't as delayed as I would expect them to be, which is great news actually. So that's okay. I'll take extra credit stuff. That's fine.
Right.
But modulation-wise, I don't think he's.
Well, like he was hyper and now he's hypo, right?
Yeah.
Now.
Well, this is his overall arousal. Okay, not to just touch. So remember, you have individual sensory systems.
Right.
Like I said, you're not going to learn this all in one day.
Yeah. No.
Each sensory system has those two flip sides. All of them collectively give you that balanced stereo system that we were talking about yesterday.
Right.
You know, in that equalized range that allows you to be fairly well modulated, fairly attentive, fairly comfortable, and kind of that basic balanced arousal state. You can learn there. You can be challenged there. You can do whatever. You don't kind of freak out, or that's when you're going out of that zone, actually. But he, very, like you just said, very poignantly, oddly goes from 0 to 60 into hyperarousal, and now 2 seconds later, he's almost under-aroused.
Right.
And so he really is having trouble hitting that mark,
His middle.
which already tells me that at least one, if not more than one sensory system is not doing their job, because we're going to need big fluctuations in arousal state.
Right.
So that's the tactile area. Proprioceptive that we were talking about, okay? That area needs work, both sides of the coin, and he's much more deficit in the discrimination side. That's where it comes into finite balance, writing reactions, getting your arms out. That's part of this area. Body awareness, knowing where your body is in space, knowing your body well enough and precisely enough that you don't need to rely on, like we're talking about with his posture, being way out here to know where your midline is. You know, having a precise understanding of
Is that
where
why
you
he
are.
doesn't like the swing?
He doesn't like that swing for a variety of reasons. That swing takes away your vision, and vision is what you use when your body is not giving you the right messages. It's also the system you go to, and your vestibular system is not giving you the right messages. Kids will use their eyes as a check and balance system. My vestibular system says, we don't know what the heck is going on. Hey eyes, what's going on out there? Oh, okay, it's all right. So they pick up the difference for both of those systems. And so I think it's part visual. I think it's part body insecurity, not really knowing how to control his body. So why the heck would I go on something that's wiggly, jiggly, or not stable?
Right.
Or moving? Because I'm just learning how to use my body on terracotta firma.
Right.
So, you know, that's one piece of it. And the vestibular system is kind of your compass. It tells you whether you're up, you're down, you're situated properly. It tells you how to protect your head. And if that system's not working right, you don't like to move, you don't like to be on unstable surfaces, and you don't like to have your eyes occlude. So proprioceptive, I think both sides of the coin are having difficulty. Vestibular is the last one, which honestly is probably one of the most important ones, for him at least. Vestibular functioning is in your ear. You have two vestibular systems, one in each ear. They're beautifully, very complex design system. Your cochlea is where you hear information. That's the first part of your ear structure. Attached to your cochlea is your vestibule,
Okay.
hence what we call your vestibular system, all that goes on there. In your vestibule, you have two receptors that basically handle linear motion, up and down motion of your head, side to side motion of your head this way, and side to side motion of your head this way. Okay? Two receptors that essentially do three functions. Then you have these beautiful canals. They look like hula hoops. You have three of them. They're called semicircular canals on each side. This is how when I teach it, when I teach the class about this is how I teach it. Envision hula hoops full of icky, jelly, and hair. And that's pretty much the most benign and rustic way I could describe this system. So basically the hula hoop is lined with little hair cells all along the thing. The goo kind of goes
That's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. And so when the goo goes around, the hair cells bend, essentially. And again, this is a rudimentary explanation. If you go look at it, it's much more scientifically oriented than this, but for your purposes, this serves you very well. So basically those hair cells bend. When the hair cells bend, the information fires to the brain. Remember the proprioceptives, the spring, squish, and stretch?
Right.
This one is when these bend in either direction.
Right.
So when the tubes get sloshed around because you move your head in those planes of motion, the goose sloshes around and bends the hair cells.